Today let's talk about how to be good at being wrong. I'm going to show you how to think about that with a new perspective. Hi, this is Dan Schuck at Glass Half Question. What's your perspective? Do people ever disagree with you? Are you ever just wrong? It sucks, doesn't it? No one ever enjoys being wrong. But if being wrong is something we all have to deal with, then being good at handling it has got to be an important life skill. Remember when we were little kids, many of us played a sport like soccer or football, to all y'all out there in the world, or skiing, where a big part of learning to be good was learning how to take a fall and get back up. I think I'm focused on this example because I broke my leg the first time I ever went skiing on a rope hill going up the bunny hill. My father was so proud. In any case, my point is, let's learn to be good at being wrong and getting back up. But more than that, as I talked about in my other practicing perspective videos, we also shouldn't miss this opportunity to get something out of it. Remember, one of the secrets to the riddle of is the glass half empty or half full question is, well, I would be remiss here if I didn't remind you of my children's book for grown-ups on this very topic. It's called A Glass Half Empty or Half Full, and you can find it on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, or on the www.glasshalfquestion.com website. With that plug aside, the point I was about to make is that the half empty part is really not empty at all. Okay, someone's going to say it's half full of air, and that's not wrong. But what I really mean is that this is the space in the glass that leaves room for opportunity. This is the space for you to add new things into your glass and to deal with the changes that others pour into your glass. So if we take that glass half question and apply it to being wrong, well, if being right is the glass half full and being wrong is the glass half empty, then being wrong means that there is opportunity in that. In fact, being wrong is the mother of invention. If you can be good at being wrong, at getting back up again with new lessons learned, well, that can be a critical perspective tool for you to use in finding that success and happiness we're all searching for. I'm going to use a historical reference here to make my point. Thomas Edison and the invention of the light bulb. Now, I gotta tell you, this story has become something of a modern myth, and there's really a lot of debate and controversy about who really invented the electric light bulb and who really was the genius of the age of electricity. But still, there's no debate about one of Edison's dominant traits, and that was perseverance. Where the other electrical geniuses of the day were using math and sciences to really work through the mysteries of electricity, Edison's role was more to experiment, specifically with trying to figure out what filament to put in the bulb that would last longer than a few seconds. His laboratories in Menlo Park became get it wrong central for the race to getting a working electrical bulb. At this time, the dominant artificial light technology was gas, which had all kinds of problems. Whoever worked out the electrical lighting solution would open the door for a new era of industrial and electrical revolution. Some of you will know Edison's famous quotes from this period. But here's one I think sums up Edison's lesson for us. Negative results are just what I want. They're just as valuable to me as the positive results. I can never find the thing that does the job best until I find the ones that don't. In other words, what Edison was pointing out was that being wrong gave him the opportunity to learn. Ultimately, as we all know, Edison found the half-full part of the glass and found a solution that made a bulb that could burn for 45 hours before burning out. It actually turned out to be a paraffin-dipped bamboo reed that he used, and later his company would go on to purchase vast quantities of bamboo from the tropics to build their light bulbs. The things you learn. But the Edison story really just tells you that there may be some value to being wrong sometimes. It doesn't really tell you how to be wrong. I was talking before about how it would be really good to learn how to take that fall so we could learn those lessons and bounce back up and be good at being wrong. Let's talk more about that, and then at the end of this video I'm going to show you how to use a piece of paper and a pen to manage being wrong in a practiced way. Being wrong when it's done the wrong way can be devastating. It can be a lot like falling terribly and incorrectly while skiing. Think about your life for just a second here and remember a time when you were wrong in a very public or embarrassing way. Or how about a time when you were wrong about money and lost some of it? Or maybe a lot of it. It's a little easier to take being wrong when your investment level is lower. I turn the wrong way down the hallway is a lot easier to be wrong about. I turn the wrong way down the road and I need to turn around is a little harder to be cool about. I'm going the wrong way on a one-way road. Yeah, those are the times when being wrong really sucks. So the subject is really obviously important when we're talking about being wrong. But in the matter of how to be wrong, it's less about the topic and more about the level of emotional investment. How big the topic is has to do with how you need to react. Obviously, being wrong about your physical safety, like driving the wrong way down a one-way road, requires rather immediate tactical reaction. So it happens to all of us. We have that moment in life when we realize we're about to be wrong. And it's useful to take a beat there and think about, well, just how big is this thing that I'm going to be wrong about really? There's a fair amount of negative connotation that comes along with being wrong. Look, I can tell you it's about opportunity all day long. but you and I also know it's still a half-empty glass. So it's impossible that there won't be some negative feelings that come along, if even just a little bit, with being wrong. Part of your being wrong skills need to be how to handle and channel these sometimes appropriate feelings into making that empty space an opportunity. And as you engage into action, it's useful to take a look at that level of emotional investment you have in the topic to see if you can understand why you feel so strongly or not about the level of action you're about to take. We all do this at times, overreact to being wrong, and get more upset about it than we really need to. That's really all I'm talking about here. But let's add another aspect of being wrong, and that's who is involved. It's not always just about how big the topic is, although that matters a lot, but also very often we have a situation where we are wrong, then someone else is right. Who that someone else is can really matter. Often we find we channel those negative feelings about being wrong that I was just talking about toward that other person. Sometimes that's absolutely appropriate. Let's say that person cheated you. Often it's really not, but we still feel that way anyway, because being wrong just sucks, and we want to put those negative feelings somewhere else. One of the more interesting perspectives to consider when you're being wrong is empathy. Now, that may sound a little wacky at first, but let me dive in here real quick on the empathy triad. I talk about this in other episodes of the Practicing Perspective series. Basically, the idea here is that there are 3 parts to empathy. Cognitive empathy, you can understand another person's perspective. Emotional empathy, you can feel how the other person must be feeling. And empathetic concern, do you have a feeling towards that person, a sense of what they need from you? Now, the reason I'm talking about this is that empathy is a really fundamental brain function in these ancient parts of the brain, the lizard brain, some people say, although that's not really right. But if you can understand how your head is working here a little, it might open up some new ways to understanding yourself. The ability to perceive the world not only from our own perspective, but also to imagine it from another person's perspective is fundamental to being a person and being able to communicate at all. This empathetic concern part is interesting when it comes to being wrong. It's one thing to imagine the facts from the other person's perspective. That's a kind of empathy. But when you have a sense for what's best for that other person, that kind of empathy can be a different kind of factor of being wrong. If the other person is someone you love, or perhaps someone you work for, or maybe someone you feel like you need to care for or steward, your empathetic concern for that person can become a kind of blinder for how you accept and perceive being wrong. Does being wrong itself create a concern for you that their feelings towards you may change? You may be concerned that you are not providing them what they need from you. Maybe that's authority. Maybe you're the parent having to realize that your child's right and you're wrong. Maybe that's care. You believe you have a responsibility to make the other person feel better, say a valued customer, and then have to face the fact that you are wrong. Maybe you are concerned that your boss will be disappointed in your being wrong. These are all different examples of where imagining how the other person will react, our empathetic concern, interacts with being wrong and can create a kind of perception blinder for you. Being really aware of this empathetic concern concept can help you dial this down or up as is needed. Okay, now we have 2 good measures to look at when we realize that we might have to deal with being wrong. 1, how big is the topic really, and what's my level of emotional investment? And 2, where's my empathy for the other person right now? Do I even understand their perspective? And further, do I have a sense of concern about how they will react to my being wrong? There are certainly other aspects we could look at, but let's keep it simple with these 2 fundamentals. How can you put them into practice to be better at taking the fall and getting the benefits of being wrong so you can get back up again? Practice. Like a lot of the other things I talk about here, there are some habits you can build so that you don't have to think about this quite as much. But to get started, or perhaps when you're feeling the habit start to wane a little bit, there's an exercise you can do to practice building this skill. This one's a little harder to practice as it's happening. Life doesn't always work that way. But you can still practice these skills by reflecting back and looking at recent past experiences of being wrong. Try this for a few days. Each evening, write down 1 or 2 incidents from that day where you were wrong. It can be really anything. Sometimes it will be another person involved, sometimes it won't. For each I was wrong statement you come up with, I've got 3 questions for you to ask yourself. 1, how big was the topic and what was my level of emotional investment? Just knowing this can help you gauge what kind of fall you are talking about and how you may or may not need to react. 2, if another person or group is involved, where's your empathy at in terms of the empathy triad? Cognitive empathy, do you understand it from the other person's perspective? Emotional empathy, do you understand how the other person feels in relation to how you are feeling? And empathetic concern, what is your relationship to the other person and how is that affecting your feelings about being wrong? Were you concerned about what that other person would think of you being wrong? Why? And 3, what did you learn? There must be something, even if it's trivial or dumb. Write it down and get into the habit of looking at the half-empty part of the glass with some optimism. Maybe there's some opportunity there. This looking back at my day to think about where I was wrong exercise is really not supposed to be something you do with a lot of negativity. It's not that fun to be wrong, and some negative connotations come along with it inherently, but try to push past this and find the positive side of being wrong. Okay, we'll add this to our Practicing Perspective Toolkit, and if you want to follow along and learn more about these tools, be sure to subscribe here, and there's more at the www.glasshalfquestion.com website, and I'll see you in another episode of Practicing Perspective.